I guess we should continue our custom of the Pledge of Allegiance before the meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Oh, we're not on the screen.
Well, it doesn't, may or may not show up for a while.
It's a delay.
We're here for the planning board meeting, Thursday, July 11th, 2024. Our first agenda item is board business. We have minutes.
Yeah, you had draft minutes from June 13th.
Any comments for the board members who are here?
I didn't have any.
I just had one quick comment, and it might be important for any future item. So on page 6, under the vote for 95 Taylor Street, it says, Houston asked about condition 7 and if there is an HOA. Gallagher stated he doesn't think there will be an HOA. Gallagher suggested an edit to the language, and Houston agreed. So I think it's important to put in there what the edit to the language was, because in the language, I believe it said if there's an HOA, but we changed it to when there's an HOA.
Okay.
So I just think it's
And-
important to make
Happy to make
that.
that correction.
Thank you.
There should be an HOA because they have to
Right.
maintain
That's
Right.
proposed.
the drainage structures and, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
if we can do that, then I would move to accept the minutes of
June 13th.
June 13th with that one change to item number 5.
Can I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are accepted. Do we have any bills?
Yeah, we have one bill, I believe it's a peer review bill. Is that what I remember?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
For which project?
Now you're asking me.
Okay.
It's on the cover sheet there.
Okay.
Sorry.
While that's being passed around, member input and member update on projects. I should say that we had a tour of Hager Homestead a few afternoons ago. It was quite interesting, and I think gratifying after all these years to see that project coming to a close, because I think that it was, well, how many years was it before the plan? I know it's been maybe 3.5 years since we approved it.
Well, on the sidewalk, Mayhew, one of the original founders of the co-housing group, reminded me it was about 8 years ago, a little under 8 years ago, that they started talking with the town. A little longer than that, when they started talking as a group.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it started in December 2019, so.
December 2019, right, so
That's the first
I came
conversation
on
I
in like
remember.
February or January, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's all keep that in mind when we go through these projects. Any other member input, member update?
Actually, that's a good lead into
Okay.
what I've been thinking about, and I caution that these are all just dates I put on a calendar. They don't actually reflect any actual dates there. But I was thinking about the schedule, sort of how to depict an overall schedule of everything going on. So I just picked a couple of the projects there. One of the big pacing ones, I think, is the sewer. I need to actually find out what the actual expected completion date is, because I think other projects are backing up based on completion of the sewer. And then the idea was to, sort of show a little timeline of perhaps like when the application was submitted, when construction started, and then what the estimated intermediate major milestones. So I was using the Northern Bank as an example. They show 3 buildings in their thing that will probably be phased, at some point there. thinking about how to make a top-level summary, and then maybe, how you would put some like little graphics on top of it, like if you clicked on the little triangle, it could bring up a, like a status picture of what's there or something there. Anyway, this is the concept that I was thinking about a little bit here in order to try to depict all the, the sort of the status of the projects. And also, I think it also then starts talking to those timelines about how long some of these things are actually in process here for it, that, you talk about them for a couple of years before work actually starts on them. And I think the big one I'd like to get a lot more information on would be is what's the planned phasing for 550 King Street there. There's a lot of pieces on it there, and I don't think we even have estimated start dates.
We don't have an estimated start date, but we do have a phasing plan. I don't know if I have it in this.
Did we
And
approve that in May?
yeah, yeah. So, and then they have some dates, and it's going out to 2037.
Yeah,
So,
but again, I think.
but in terms of starting, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think those would be the kinds of things that, people are wondering about, and then trying to get an overall piece there, and there's probably half a dozen other projects, I didn't go through the whole list of all of them there to try to capture something. Right now, I have this as an Excel spreadsheet, but, some better tool, eventually might be a better way to depict it and save it so that, others can readily view it there. But anyway, this is just conceptually what I was thinking about relative to what I talked about as a master schedule type of thing there.
In my view, this is very interesting. Of course, we'd have to go back, 3 years and go
Yeah.
forward. But, we're not in control of these schedules, and we'd have to get, disclosure of them from the project
Right.
people.
I don't think.
Who may,
that's
for various reasons, not want.
I don't think that's unreasonable of us to
No,
ask them to
absolutely not.
provide that
Yeah.
information, especially if the project's been approved and ongoing. But it also shows us how difficult it is to try to find this information. The sewer doesn't have a master schedule of what their plans are. It just has like next week's construction project on it. So I couldn't find with their estimated end date. I think a select board member chairman might have told me when it was expected to be completed now. But again, my difficulty in finding this information, I think, would reflect townspeople difficulty in also readily finding it.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you did, and I think that the graphic is really helpful because of the visual nature of it. I think it goes well hand in hand with what we do in terms of the member or the project updates, to be able to speak to them a little bit. But then also, if this could maybe be put somewhere, either on the website or put onto, say, the newsletter with any updates, like quarterly or something like that, if we do the newsletter.
Yeah, one of the things I was struggling with in terms of like the timelines there is I usually work with a 35-inch screen so I can have a lot of screen real estate. This doesn't fit on a phone worth beans.
That's true.
And it's well beyond my web skills to figure out how to make a scaling graphic that you could scroll readily like that. So I think the first thing is at least try to get the data, try to put something, at least a rough outline together, and then figure out how we could move that to a more production kind of thing there.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm looking for is a little feedback, and also that if this is something that we want to continue looking at.
Yeah, my only feedback would be for prior years is just consolidating it maybe to one line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just
Or one
thinking that
column,
too,
I mean,
because
yeah.
we're really interested in the forward.
Yeah.
It's interesting, the history,
Yeah.
but we're interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the
going
reasons why we have 5-year terms, right? Because it just takes so long to get anything done.
Yeah. Yeah, my intent would be is probably, when I was thinking about it, is trying to just keep it to the current, like starting in '23, just sort of indicate that the stuff might have started beforehand.
Yeah.
But again, it's a trade-off, is like the more information you put down, the harder it is to navigate it, and,
Well, I just don't think a lot of the information is there. I would
Yep.
guarantee you that the developers don't have the information. Because they're dealing with business cycles, they're dealing with ups and downs that, financing, they're dealing with this and that. And so they make plans, then they change plans and, whatever, so.
But that's okay that plans change.
Yeah.
But just to say that we approved a project and then sometime in the future, at an unknown date, they're gonna start it and then finish it, I think we can have more
Yeah,
more
well,
insight
and
into that
especially, I think
process.
we're all really hungry for, some of these
Yeah.
things, like Northern Bank.
Yep.
It would be nice to get going.
But again, understanding what the pacing
Yeah.
items are, on it, can then, you can see this, the impacts, like I said, I think one of the pacing items is probably the sewer.
Definitely.
And you can see if that pushes out, you can see that those projects will naturally end up pushing out.
So.
Well, and there could be footnotes, or not something to denote the fact that, okay, this was expected to be X year, but now due to such and such factors, it's now pushed out another year, Because that's the kind of information that people talk about, especially when they feel like, well, we've been talking about this for so long and nothing has happened.
And what you can do is, again, just as I think about it in real time here, is if we did make it web-enabled somehow, here, is we could have just top-level information here, and then the column where the project name is could just be a direct link to the planning board website with the project, all the project
project page.
information on it, so that rather than trying to replicate all of the tidbits out of that, you could point people to where the repository is.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
vice versa. The project files could link to this. I mean, someone might go to the project file first.
Yeah.
There should be some, they had periodic sewer update meetings, and I wasn't able to go to the last one, but the last one I went to prior to that was, they said May of 2025, they wanted the resource recovery facility open. Then I heard that it had been pushed back. I don't know. It seems like there should be some actual, I mean, the actual laying of the pipe seems to be going quite well and progressing. Anyway, but you're totally right. It's all a knot of schedules related to the sewer.
Yeah. I went to their website, I found their Q&A sessions there, I saw a couple of charts, but I didn't have the patience to listen to the rest of the hour of them talking about questions and answers to find out whether that tidbit, because that tidbit of information wasn't in
Yeah.
any of the formal presentation part that they did.
Oh, really?
There was no, I looked
Oh.
at all the
Okay.
charts, as I skimmed through the meeting there, so.
Yeah.
Now might be a good time to interject that Nick Lawler, General Manager of Light and Water Department, has agreed to come to the September 12th Planning Board meeting and provide an update on sewer.
Great.
And then just today, let Town Administrator's Office know. So I imagine that likely would include a Select Board invitation for that, so.
Well, we should invite anyone.
Well, yeah, obviously, but
Okay, well,
to
thank you,
get that on their calendar,
Daryl.
yeah.
Any other,
I just had a quick update from Affordable Housing Trust. So we are continuing to work on our two primary projects. Turkey Farmhouse we're looking at doing the perk testing. And then at 87 Tehadawon Road, we are reviewing the proposal to the RFP to build a duplex. So thanks to everyone for the support at town meeting. The LRAP program will have funding for the 24-25 fiscal year, and the recipient award is now being increased to $500 a month starting in July. So that's what's going on with the trust.
What was the first project?
The Durkee Farmhouse,
Turkey Farmhouse.
that's, I believe, at 260 Foster Street.
and I should mention that we're gonna resurrect Dean Lane.
As the planning board, we are?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that would be,
I mean, that's related to the.
yes, it is related, because if something comes of it, then the trust could presumably have another parcel to be able to work
Right.
with. Yeah, okay. That'll be an
I
interesting
mean, it's
conversation.
just sitting there. And 20 years from now, it might still be sitting there, and that's not right.
Would that be a topic at our retreat
That
or
was,
at?
that was part of what Myrna and I were talked about in the retreat.
Okay, sounds good.
We, we're also going to talk about the planning board code of conduct. I looked at it. I talked to Jim Dugan about it. And, I think we can definitely use the select board one, washing out the select board, but there's one section in particular that, is not really set up for us, and that's about how you relate to the administration. So it's something we'll talk about in the retreat.
So we're going to hold off on that till then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to bring all the board members up to the same point on it, I had sent out a draft that changed select board to planning board, reflected the discussions that we had with Jim and the direction that you provided. It's a draft for.
I know,
for
and there's
review
no
and for
there's no big
discussion.
deal about it. It's just that we should get it on the books. Okay, what time is it?
Real quick,
Yeah,
so I just
go
had a
ahead.
question on this statement, so if you wouldn't mind taking a look here, so, I just want to make sure, so this statement is for a task order from like 18 months ago, and so they just are now billing it? Is that the way it works out, Maren?
They bill each item as they bill each month as they complete, as they have hours, and they'll bill it to a particular line item in their task
Okay.
order.
Is this project now done for them?
This one is
Nine Air Road?
Pioneer Road. It's a good question. Is there a remaining balance in the,
There is.
yeah, so they still have some time available left if we need it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
It's now time, 6:45 is past. The next agenda item is an A&R for 65 Bruce Street. Are you here for that? Could you introduce yourself, give your address, and tell us what's happening?
Evening, board. My name is Randolph Miller, the property owner for 65 Bruce Street. So with this plan that's presented to the board, it's a property swap, basically with 91 Bruce Street and my property, 91 belonging to Jim and Eleanor Pickard. So essentially, what this is about is I'm looking to have a new septic system put in place in the new property that would be gained from Jim Pickard. And with that swap, I'd be giving up some property it's within the buffer for me, so I couldn't do anything about it. So it's flooding against Jim's property. So the southern portion of the property, if you look at it on the map, right there where the mouse is, that's where the septic design would be in place. So that area right there, but more on the eastern side towards the street itself, because that still falls within the buffer zone of the conservation land. And then I'd be gaining that, and then I'd be giving up the property to the western portion there.
So parcel X, not to be considered a separate buildable lot.
Right, and then when you look at note, I think, I can't tell which one from here, either 2 or 3, it says the disposition of parcels X and Y, that one could go in one place and the other could go in the other. There is a larger copy if you'd like to look at a hard copy.
So as far as the project goes, the property that I'd be getting from Jim, the perk test has already been done on it. It does pass perk. We have a rough draft already for a septic design. So more or less, once we get the approvals for the actual property swap, we can then begin seeking permission from the Conservation Committee to go ahead with the proposed plan. Present to you as well, the project, once we get those plans in place.
I don't think we need to see those
Okay.
plans.
Okay.
I mean, the Board of Health and the
Yeah.
Conservation Commission, I mean, we're just dealing with the lines on the paper.
Okay.
Anyone else here for this matter to speak? I don't think so. Any board members?
Just have a quick question. So, these plans show the two separate parcel pieces getting moved, if you will, because that's what the notes reflect. The application didn't reflect parcel Y, and I was just curious if there was a reason for that.
I didn't put the application, yeah, I just, basically the surveyor sent the application to me, it was already kind of pre-filled, so I did the sign. I don't know why.
I'm just wondering if you could contact, our staff could contact and just ask them that they put the Y parcel on the application as well.
So all that's required on the application is the signature of the property owners, and so that is included.
That's not what I'm saying, though,
Okay.
but if you, let me pull it up real quick.
So the location of the property was 65 First Street.
Right, but it only speaks about parcel X, it doesn't speak to parcel Y on the application? Right there, under number 10. Because-
Yep,
because the
okay,
plan
so
said-
the disposition of parcel Y.
Right.
Got it. Yep.
So if we could have them just identify that parcel Y is being,
I understand, thank you.
thank you. Okay.
Okay. Daryl, do you have any questions? Can
Well,
I?
actually, just one, so this will be retitled or redeeded as a single new parcel with these new property lines? Yeah. No questions.
Can I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the A&R with the modification requested by Ms. Houston.
Yep, to add the Y to the application under item number 10. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Daryl?
Aye.
Okay, you're all set?
Just a couple questions. Do I just see the boards at some point next week to figure out the other part of that portion of the application?
Al Berry did the plans, right, his office?
Yes.
And he had filled out the application form?
Initially, yes.
Yeah, we'll work with you on
Okay.
just updating the application form. Do you guys want to sign the Mylar tonight?
This Mylar over here.
Okay.
Let's do it
Okay,
now.
I'll just hold that until we get the application corrected. Okay, so, yeah, I'll be in.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yeah, practice your signature.
There was just one copy, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so next item is definitive subdivision, Strawberry Farms, endorse Mylars and covenant. Do we have Mylars?
Yeah.
Okay. More signing.
So I would recommend the board vote to accept the covenant and sign the Mylar and the covenant.
I'm not prepared to accept the covenant.
Yeah, I not either.
I saw an email at 2:30. I didn't get home from work until 6:15, so I'm not prepared to approve that.
What do you suggest, that we hold off on signing this, or?
And it's always up to the board how you wish to proceed. I would like the opportunity to give an update, and then you can decide if you want to sign them now and ask me to hold them, or if you'd rather wait all the votes until
Okay,
the
so
next
let's
meeting.
have an update on the covenant.
So since last week, the developers team provided the Mylars. I was able to have Breed International back check those, and they are all corrected and ready for the board's signature. The covenant was approved by town council this afternoon, so that was the update on that. The format is the covenant that we've used in prior subdivisions, and the developer provided the information that we needed to fill in the blanks on that. So that one's ready to go when you're ready to review it. Let's see. Town clerk signed the decision noting that there was no appeal to the planning board's decision, and she also endorsed the certificate of no appeal that appears on the Mylars. So those are ready to go when you are.
Well, I'll leave it up to you.
I'm okay to approve the Mylars, because we was expecting that there, in terms of the things there, but I haven't seen the covenant at all, so I'm not prepared to. So I'm okay with approving the Mylars and then pushing the covenants to the next meeting.
Okay, I can't recommend that you, I would recommend you ask me to hold the Mylars,
Okay.
because the decision and the Mylars and the covenant should be recorded together.
Okay.
Because the covenant is the first form of security. That's the agreement between the developer and the town. The developer agrees to build the subdivision in accordance with the subdivision plans.
We want that.
Yep, absolutely.
Are you okay with that, Anna?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Is it at all possible that we could just do the signatures until your approval at a later, like next week or something like that? We're trying to close on
We'll
the
be at the
property.
next meeting.
Next meeting is what, next month?
August 1st.
3 weeks.
3 weeks away. Yeah, the couple, or there's a woman who's elderly who lives there, and we're trying to close on it. She desperately needs the money. She's been living there for 60 or 70 years, and they're in tough shape for the money. And we have, obviously, we have contracts we have to fulfill. I was hoping, in the very least, we could get, if, I know everything came through last minute today. I totally understand where you guys are coming from. But I wasn't sure if you guys could approve it, and then once you guys review it next week, or you have time between now and then you could just give us our final approval, I don't know, and we could go from there, if there's another way to go around it.
So,
I would appreciate having the other two members here to review the covenant, because it's some.
so we will have a meeting August 1st. We can schedule you. At which point you get all your signatures, assuming.
Yep. The other option is to add a Zoom meeting sometime when everybody's available. Keep it limited to this.
I'm willing to do that if it can be arranged. It's just the summer, so there's a lot of coming and going. How do you two feel about that? Could you make yourself available for a 20-minute Zoom meeting, or?
My schedule is too unpredictable, so I just don't know. So I'd rather just wait. And then, as an aside, one of the things that I was going to talk about during our discussion of the code of conduct was a 48-hour freeze where we don't get anything within those 48 hours. So whether it's documentation from the applicant or internally, if it's 48 hours, 48 business hours before our meeting, we shouldn't be getting stuff. So anyway, that's kind of my perspective on it, because it's just.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same sheet there, because, try to prepare for these meetings a few days in advance here and go through it, and then to have all new material pop up at the last minute doesn't give me time to properly review it. And I don't just rubber stamp, the things here. I understand what you're asking there, but again, once we sign it, we've approved it. And I'm not in a position to do that.
And I would prefer not to, because I think that then sets precedence for any future applicants as well who are in this same position.
Yeah, honestly, the July 4th week killed me. Truthfully, honestly, I was away last week, and it was, obviously it was a short week as it was. So we've done our due diligence. We've tried really hard to get this to the position where it is today. I was hoping for a little bit of understanding on that front. I totally understand where you guys came from. I talked to Maureen earlier today, and I said I get, wanting 1 week typically to review these materials and have your, like you said, be prepared. I totally, I live here in Littleton as well, so I get, there's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of push for that. I was hoping just for a little bit of leniency as one situation, because we did have that 4th of July week, where things were pretty much, everything comes to a standstill in the construction world.
I think we have 2 members here that are willing to go forward tonight. I would like to point out on the balance that we're not seeing, I guess I can make this statement, we're not seeing anything different on the covenant that we haven't already seen.
For those board members who have been through the subdivision process before, that's true.
Okay.
In general, but
So, okay.
it's a document that you're being
And
asked to
there's nothing wrong
vote on and
with
sign.
familiarizing yourself with this process. I haven't actually, I don't think I've been through a subdivision, because they were all
A lot of them were
before. We haven't had many subdivisions lately.
lately. That's right, it's very true.
Anyway, okay, sorry. Let's schedule first thing for August 1st. Do you want to do it at 6:45?
Yeah, we'll slide that one in as early as we can, yep.
Okay,
Excellent.
sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, it's past 7. Mr. Harrington?
So I would recommend open the public hearing with the
Right.
reading of the hearing notice.
So, would you read the hearing notice?
Public hearing, zoning bylaw amendment. The Town of Littleton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, ooh, wrong one. Wait a minute, that's the last time around.
It's a trick question.
You want me up here at the table, or would you like?
Have a seat.
Yeah.
Make yourself comfortable.
Thank you.
You'll be here.
Oh, please don't say that.
No, just gotta have a little levity during these things, or else.
Always lawyer jokes, right? Always lawyer.
Must be important if Mr. Harrington is here.
What's that?
Must be important if Mr. Harrington is here.
Or it's vacation time.
And you're covering. All right. Let me see here. Where did that-
Okay, we will take it off the website. Public hearing, zoning bylaw amendment. Let's try this again. Littleton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 11th at 7 p.m. in room 103 of the Shattuck Street Town Offices at 37 Shattuck Street to consider a zoning bylaw amendment to Article 27, registered marijuana dispensaries, and Article 28, adult use marijuana establishments, with a corresponding change in the zoning map. Proposed amendment is to update the local cannabis zoning bylaws and to limit the number of marijuana cultivation facilities that may be cited in town. The full text of the proposed amendment is on file with town clerk and planning board offices and can be viewed during their office hours or online at the website. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the proposed amendment should appear at the time and place designated or provide written comments by July 9th if possible. Feel free to call the planning board office with phone number and my email with any questions.
Okay, so, this hearing is to, as we've just heard is to propose a bylaw amendment, which we think is necessary to achieve the goal of limiting cultivation sites in town. There has been changes to the regulatory structure of cannabis since our bylaw was instituted. One of the issues, or the issue that we're here to consider is what is the best way to do it? And that's why you're here. And I think I needed a law degree to go through Ivria's, brief.
Yeah.
So, which I don't think that, the people of Littleton should have to consider things to that degree. That's why we rely on you. So perhaps you can tell us what we need to be focusing on.
Sure. And first, good evening, everybody. Tom Harrington, Town Council. Nice to see you all. Ivria would have been here. She is an avid camper, and a campsite came available. And so I think her family jumped at it. And so I said I would fill in. To be clear, Ivria, at this point, I think, is one of the leading municipal attorneys on marijuana. And it's a lot, right? It's 7 pages of dense. I agree. The problem is, and you may see some of this with the state auditor looking to take over the Cannabis Control Commission. I don't know if you've... state auditor, I should say, the Inspector General's office has suggested that the CCC be put into receivership so that someone can step in and run it. And the problem, quite frankly, is that there's a combination of mixed signals and no signals coming out of the CCC, and it's led to a lot of confusion. And so when a lawyer writes a letter, it's our duty to kind of raise each and every issue, because we don't want to be in the position of being told we didn't include something. So I don't know if there was another way to write this. Is the long and
I'm not
short
criticizing
of
it. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just inviting
it's just
our
it's a
board
lot-
members
it's a
not
lot.
to have to drill down into every
I found it
detail.
very, informative. And then the one thing I wanted to try to do is, because there's a lot of facts in there that we have to consider.
Right.
And I think we had a draft from last meeting, which I think this review was based on that.
The draft bylaw.
Yes.
Yeah.
The one that had all the consolidated comments without all the extra red lines in it. And I think what would be helpful is if we zoomed in on like which section of the revised bylaw that we're talking about, and then you raise issues in here that we may or may not need to be concerned about.
Right.
Maybe we could just tie those really
Yeah.
concretely together.
Yeah.
Because it was difficult for me to find
Right.
the source document and match up the comments.
And we need a direction on ballot, town meeting.
Right.
Combination of both.
So let's start with this.
Okay.
Right? So let's start with the fact that we have 2 different marijuana zoning bylaws in place. One for medical and one for adult recreational. And I think the first piece of advice is to take them and combine them into one, right? Because there's different standards. They're both, for lack of a better term, outdated because they reference, for instance, they refer to the Department of Public Health as the regulatory authority. That's now the CCC, the Cannabis Control Commission. So we want to make sure that we're referencing the right agency and we're referencing the right statute. Those have all also been updated, and we're referencing the right regulations. Those have all also been updated. So I consider those just kind of legal cleanup, right? Just let's take the 2 and make one. Let's make sure we have all the right citations in there. And, by the way, the medical used to be called an RMD, and now it's called a an MTC, which is a marijuana medical treatment center. So just updating. So, we were an early adopter, good for us. And we have outdated terminology, so let's catch up. So, and I don't think that's controversial, taking the two and combining into one. Okay. So that's what this does. And to make sure we're looking at the same one, mine is dated July 11th, 2020. It says attachment C, proposed marijuana bylaw red line, July 11, 2024 PB meeting. Is that
Yeah, so do you want to work with the red line, or do you want to work with the clean?
Clean copy, I
Clean,
think, because
yeah.
we're
The
we're
red
just
line
going to
is
talk about
distracting,
changes from the
yeah.
clean copy at this point.
But this one has blue comments.
Aaron, can you share with me what you shared with the board?
Well, there was 3 copies in there, that's why it was,
okay.
right, with different versions, with
Different versions,
of
okay.
comments there. And what I found was, I was really looking for, was like, okay, got all the history, got the thing here, what's the
Yep.
bottom line, and then what's
Yep.
the issues with our bottom line
Yep,
at this point?
okay,
Because we don't need to talk about edits that have already been made.
right, right. Right, so updates and,
Well,
updates.
even with edits, though, I do have like 6 of them.
Yeah, but they'd be new edits
Yes,
at this
exactly.
point.
Okay, so, and I'm going to kind of use the letter as a guide.
Okay.
So we've just cleared the updates and consolidation version. Okay, so we're good there. I'm going to skip over the unreasonably impracticable provisions, which is in the new law, but that's kind of a way to think about this in an overarching fashion, but I don't think we need to talk about it here. And we get to prohibition. And so I'd like to have that conversation. I'd like to understand what the board wants to do with regards to prohibition. Because understanding what you want to do helps determine how we would do that.
So is prohibition a legal term? Because we're not prohibiting.
Prohibition is a legal term.
Well, but the goal,
Better said. Tell me the goal.
we have a cultivation facility in town now that has both a medical treatment license and a adult use license.
Correct.
We would like that to be the end of cultivation facilities in town.
Okay, that's the last
It
one.
has been a huge source of complaint and controversy.
Right.
And in talking with other towns, and its odor, I don't think people are against, cultivating marijuana per se, but its odor, and I'm told that it's even worse when it's just growing out in the sun, the odor. So we would like to stop with what we have now.
So I guess that's what I was going to maybe follow up and ask is, the sense of, are we talking about limiting or prohibiting? And then what's the implication from the bylaw and approval process?
Right,
Well,
so,
I don't think we ever talked about prohibiting. I mean, we
Okay.
have
Well, no,
some
there's
existing.
differences in terms of what the process is, right?
right.
So I think I understood we were talking about limiting it to
What's
the
here.
numbers that we already,
And in Ivria's, Pressy, there are currently 5 scenarios of cultivation,
Right.
and 3 of which we don't have any adult use sort of pairs with.
Right.
So I don't think we understand exactly what those are. I mean, the craft cooperative, et cetera.
Right. So would it be useful to discuss those?
Well,
Can I just add to this part of the conversation? So, in terms of what Jeff explained, yes, I would agree, based off of having the existing businesses, because we cannot put them out of business, I understand that. But if there is a way to be able to say that if they were to elect to leave their business, that's it, that nobody can take it over. So in other words, for me, the goal is to ultimately get to 0. And if that means that they are in business in perpetuity, fine. but if they do cease to do business, that's it. There are no other licenses to be had. That would be my ideal.
Okay, so where we would fall short of your goal is we cannot prohibit the cultivation of medical marijuana. We can prohibit the cultivation of adult use marijuana. And these are going to require, so this is going to be zoning bylaw and ballot question. And I think from the draft I have, Maren, that I think we provided, this allows for the number of, let's see. So for craft marijuana cooperatives, those would be prohibited, right? So this is, right, so we're going to prohibit that.
Right.
And that's where it's kind of the business is shared by a number of different people who are all part of a cooperative. And I assume you know how cooperatives work? They're used.
Are there such growers in the state?
There are. Ivrea said that there were 4 of them, I think,
Okay.
already.
I have no problem with prohibiting that. I just don't even understand what it would look, what they look
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
Yeah, it's food cooperatives.
Sure.
Same
Yeah.
thing, except marijuana. So
Or marijuana.
the idea is that so marijuana is considered, I think, kind of big business at this point, and cultivation is big business, big dollars. And this allows a number of people to come together and grow separately under one license.
So we'd have to make an argument for why they should be prohibited. And my feeling is we went through, with a big grower, a huge technological, operational, various, responses that a craft cooperative may not be able to do if there are complaints.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'm good with eliminating that.
I think it's a hard model. I think, I think the theory of it was let smaller businesses compete with bigger businesses. I don't think it's really worked out that way.
okay, so there was the craft cooperative, there
Right.
was, what are the 2 other minor,
The micro business.
There's a micro business, right, which is, a micro business is a co-located adult-use marijuana establishment that can either be a Tier 1 cultivator or product manufacturer or both. A Tier 1 is the smallest tier, which it only allows 5,000 square feet of canopy, where most licenses are up to 100,000, can be up to 100,000 square feet of canopy.
would we be, I'm going back to the adult use, would we be able, could we in our bylaw prescribe limits on square footage of growing as a method of control?
I think so, yes. Some of these, and I'll be honest, some of the questions I'm going to have to bring back to Ivrea because she's the expert. But I think the answer to that is yes.
Okay. I'm not saying we do that, I'm just gathering info.
Your options, yeah.
Just one clarifying piece there. So the moving to 0 requires both town meeting and a ballot vote. And then
With the understanding that we don't have that authority over medical.
correct. Yeah, and then the consolidation and update is just a town meeting item, or does that require a ballot also?
That would not require a ballot.
Okay. So I guess what I'd like to maybe think about as we're doing, the discussion here is the ones that can be approved with just town meeting, we have as just some kind of isolated package, and then the ones that are contingent on a ballot vote be a separate article there, so that we don't
But
push
wouldn't the
the
bylaw,
two together.
Right, and
Reflect-
Ivrea has started setting up a warrant article in that manner.
Okay.
So she's,
So then we
mean-
just keep them separate in terms of,
well,
if there's objection to the prohibition, we don't want to torpedo the the consolidation piece
Right,
there.
she had a little different way of approaching it. You can do this is what town meeting is voting on, and then this is what town meeting is voting on contingent on a future ballot vote. So you do have all of that covered.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, one of the oddities that we're dealing with is the statute says you take your ballot vote first, and then you do your town meeting vote, which is, from a logical sense, backwards, because it does not allow town meeting to amend, right? So well, actually, no, it's the other way around. I
Plus,
think
a ballot is a simple majority
Right.
where
It's
where
the
the zoning is 2/3, so,
Correct.
Right,
so that's sort of weird,
right.
because you could pass a ballot and not pass the zoning.
Right. What we want to do is bring it to town meeting first, and we think that the state will approve it, so that we can get whatever we get, because the language of whatever's approved has to be on the ballot. So
Okay.
it needs to appear. So we're going to do it backwards. We think we're fine doing it backwards. Other towns have done it backwards. But again, it's one of the oddities of creating a regulatory agency that is not fulfilling its mission.
And then, I know I'm jumping around and jumping in the middle of everybody's conversations here on it, is again, the ballot for prohibition is kind of a wild card, because you don't know how people are going to vote, the piece there. But town meeting could have vote, I'm just thinking structurally here, if you had a vote to approve one, limit all the licenses to one, and that could be done at town meeting without a ballot, and then the ballot separate for prohibition there, so that if for some reason the town doesn't want to prohibit, but is okay with limiting, I want to make sure that we take into account that contingency, that we don't end up with it losing and then no limits left in our bylaw.
Exactly.
Well, the other issue is, by opening this hearing, have we wasn't there some strategy about,
By opening this hearing now, if everything passes and
Right.
is eventually approved by the AG's
anything
office,
that comes before us after
from here
this
forward.
would be
it's-
subject to this? Okay.
Correct.
Which is why we didn't put it off.
So, I think I'm hearing, maybe not full understanding of the number of different types of grow facilities that the town would have to allow without, if you don't get approval on a ballot vote. One is the
Yeah, I think,
medical, and that one you have to allow either way.
Right.
One is the adult use marijuana,
But,
and you have to, but
Oh.
and if you get both town meeting vote and ballot vote, you can make that zero. But then there's also the craft cooperative
right,
and
and the
and
micro-business,
the micro business.
which we need to allow, but we think we can prohibit from their cultivation.
Right.
But the other parts of the business can still go on.
Right, there are other aspects of the micro business that can go on. yes.
Exactly. So if you go to town meeting and you're going for the prohibition and that passes, but you don't also get the ballot vote, then you would end up with the 4 different types in the bylaw.
but limited?
Limited, what you want to.
Not prohibited,
That's what I'm saying.
not prohibited, but limited.
Right, you want to make sure that you have a hard limit.
I have a hard time with this prohibition terminology, and I know that it's legal, but, I mean, that could get people's backs up. That's all, I'm not against any of this, I'm just thinking
Yeah.
that, in this presentation, it's a little much, prohibition didn't work out, nationwide when it was instituted. So, why use that term, but I guess we,
Because that's what
Anyway.
it is.
I mean, really, it's, and it's 2 different processes, right? It's, town meeting is one thing, and the ballot is often something else. So we get approval at town meeting. There's no guarantee that we get approval at the ballot, but we're going to have to go through
no,
both processes.
I agree with you, however, I would say based on the meetings we've had about this issue before this board, there's a lot of interest in limiting and prohibition. Anyway, so what about Anna's comment about disappearing the license if Sanctuary leaves that business? How is that dealt with?
So it can, I mean,
Or
Grandfathered,
do
essentially.
you do prohibition for all these categories except medical, and then, then it's just implied that there's grandfathering, or how does that work?
so, and this is, this is very much a case-by-case basis.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a 5-year, it's a 5-year license,
Yeah.
right? So, without being bound, I'll just give you my opinion. 5-year license, we prohibit. If they apply for an extension before the license expires, I think we might have a challenge winning that in court if we were to deny. I think there's some sort of property right. that-
Absolutely, I mean, it
So-
seems,
Kind of pre-existing non-conforming would be the way to think about it.
well,
If the license expires and they don't apply before the license
Right.
expires, I think the bylaw is valid.
so how would this be dealt with? Once again, is this just implied in the by, because a lot of zoning, it's not obvious what the language says. And it's also not obvious always how it's interpreted by towns and building officials, et cetera. So, does this need to be stated in this proposed bylaw, or just implied in this procedure that you just said? 5-year licenses, if it expires, and under this category, it won't be renewed, it will not be available. Further licensing will not be available for this category.
So I guess I think I would state it in the bylaw, but I wouldn't explain it as to how it applies to that facility.
Okay,
in fact,
no, I agree,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wouldn't say we have a prohibition, but if a current license holder, seeks a renewal before the expiration of their permit, it shall be valid.
I think their attorney is capable of reading between the lines.
Yeah, would you have to be explicit about grandfathering on any existing licenses until they lapse or something?
Well, that's what he's saying that
You
we.
can be, but if you're not, then we're gonna rely on case law,
Yeah.
right? And
Well, and that's why I wanted to ask about that, because you talk about unreasonable conditions.
Impractical, yeah.
Impractical, and including the recognition that there's a substantial capital investment in these. So us denying a license at some point where there's been substantial capital investment seems like that's
It
ripe
would-
for a lawsuit.
or ripe for the Attorney General to deny that part of the bylaw, because
Right.
that whole provision is about the Attorney General being able to look at the bylaw and saying, not here.
But I do think, we could try, what Anna suggested along the lines of what you just explained about the 5-year licensing, if it expired, that's not,
I mean,
assuming assuming we make a good faith effort to deal with a extension of an existing application.
right, but for the sake of the bylaw, we prohibit cultivation, period.
Yes, okay.
Except for a medical, I think it's a registered.
Yeah, which
Medical
this
facility.
particular grower does also have a license, yeah.
And the medical is just statewide, it's state law that medical facilities must be allowed. Okay.
Now, what about limitations of square footage
On medical,
on medical?
I'm gonna have to, that, I don't know.
Okay. Because if the goal is to prohibit, let's just use the word prohibit, not prohibition. If the goal is to prohibit, then the whole square footage thing doesn't matter. you know, but it might matter in the medical. Okay.
I just think we should be cautious when we talk about prohibiting there, because while there is concerns about the numbers and the other parts there, prohibiting and going to zero could spark quite a bit of reaction in terms of taking away a right that the state, people
Absolutely.
thought the state gave the town. And I think there's a lot of risk in terms of bringing that to the ballot without understanding what the broad section of town is concerned about.
Well, let's talk about that scenario. If something passes by 2/3 vote at town meeting, and I guess the ballot is, town meeting is a very select few people. The ballot is a
Yeah.
wider group,
Yeah.
which is why I'm nervous about this prohibition, thing. So what's the scenario if it doesn't pass on the ballot? Then,
Done nothing.
okay, we want with our zoning bylaw, which I do believe we probably can get passed, to have it as strong as possible going toward our goal.
Yeah. I'm just thinking out loud, and I don't know if you've talked to Ivry about this, but maybe we want 2 warrant articles. One that allows what doesn't need a ballot question, so that if we get the
Yeah.
approval there, at least we've done
Right,
cleanups
right.
and that sort of thing. And then the second that's just focused on what we think we need the ballot vote for.
Right.
Sure.
That's what I recommend.
When would this what election, would it be the townwide election in May, or would it be?
I don't know.
You
There
want-
will be an election in November. I don't know if we're able to get a local ballot put together.
I think, without speaking for Diane,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be told that is, so you need to run that by the Secretary of State. You need to get it into her, I think, 90 days
So, yeah.
before the election. And it's a layer of complexity on top of a federal election that
Yeah.
most clerks would say,
Right.
Yeah,
No, I
this is
think that's
both
fine.
federal and state elections
Right.
in November, so likely May.
Yeah, 90 days would mean she'd have to have it ready by August 5th, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you can
Which
hold a
which we
special
don't have to.
election, or you can wait till.
For this
No.
item.
Yeah, that's, because I don't know how much elections cost, but I always figure around.
Well, it's not even a matter of cost, it's like, people would roll their eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so then so, board, we have just had this, basically, proposal to prepare 2 warrant articles. Is that the case? One which would
Yeah.
go as far as we can without the ballot, and then the other warrant article would be subject to passed as a bylaw, but subject to approval by ballot.
Right.
Okay.
Did you talk to Ivry about doing this 2 warrant article process? Or 2 parts of 1 article, or?
But only a little bit, and usually the warrant article is well after the planning board hearing is.
Yeah. I think, yeah, so we have some time to think about it, but,
Yeah.
and I came up with that idea, 4 minutes ago.
Well,
But-
when is our special town meeting this year?
October 27th
Okay,
or
so
9th.
we don't have tons of time, but,
Yeah.
I think we've done a lot of work on this.
Mhm.
You have done a lot of work on this. So what you need from the board is an action plan.
Well,
And
I think
we've
you have
just-
provided the policy direction.
Right. And then we will, it's hard to say. I would not think this is controversial based on the experience we've had on the board. However, when the gun bylaw went, that barely made it, even with, a lot of sentiment.
Yeah.
And I do remember town meeting, well, Littleton was a yes community,
Mhm.
which is why we're under this particular set of regulations with what the town has to allow. So more than 50% of the voters in an election voted yes on the referendum to allow marijuana. And I do recall a town meeting vote where the medical marijuana bylaw was passed. It was quite overwhelming
Sure.
that it should be passed. And then similar with the adult use marijuana, a lot of support for having the facilities in town.
So,
So
and
there's-
I think that from, our point of view as a proactive planning board, we're reacting to issues that we've had with cultivation, not with, sales and all that stuff, but it's specifically cultivation. I mean, there may be other issues, but that's the one that's before us mostly.
Would it be useful, so taking, I'm currently working from red line, blue line, whatever you want to call it, accepting the basic ones so that we're not cluttered with that and just focusing on the things for you to think about, and we
Yes.
would add to that a prohibition section.
And then we want to make sure you,
Right, I
Anna
do
said she
have
had
some-
some comments that
Sure,
are not
sure, yeah.
reflected in there, that we want to capture those.
Yeah.
When do you want to cover those? Right now?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is, since we are opening up this bylaw, if you will, is actually reviewing the map. Because it's been 10 years and 6 years respectively, and things have changed in Littleton. So to that degree, I think it would be helpful to be able to review the maps with regard to what's considered a park, what's considered a child's facility, so that any future providers of any one of the various licenses that can be obtained know, you can't go there because it's not even allowed it's not allowed. So that would be the first thing I would ask our board, is to consider.
Can I do a parenthetical? So we did mapping for the gun bylaw, but we also did mapping when the first, the collective was proposing sites. And we did find out that there was some assumptions about what was included and excluded were wrong. I mean, they didn't consider the common as a park or,
Yeah.
Right.
I would say the planning board and town meeting the planning board can propose and town meeting can adopt an amendment to the zoning district. What you would expect any applicant to do would be to provide enough information for the planning board to make a decision on any particular site. You can't do that ahead of time because you don't know where the childcare facilities are going to be
No, but it's
located.
where they are today.
But I don't think we want that part of the zoning. We want the
You can't
definitions
have
as
it.
part of the zoning.
because it
right?
would have to
Correct.
change every.
Because that
So-
would change over time,
So,
exactly.
right, I'm not talking about what could be in the future, I'm talking about what is now, right? And as an example, right now, 173-200 in the proposed bylaw has 2 maps, and my recommendation is to make it just the one map rather than 2 of them, because if you look on page 5 for the,
Yeah, medical has
Has a
a
separate district.
smaller district defined than recreation.
Well, and the recreational map is only the retail facilities. So,
So it's, if you want to have 2 different zones, maps, whatever you want to call it, that's fine, but it is worth thinking about, is this something that you want to combine?
right, and when you're thinking about grow facilities in particular, where
where?
do you,
Right.
where, yeah.
However, if we're prohibiting grow facilities, what's the point of having a map?
You might not be totally prohibiting grow facilities.
Well,
So my point is that the map is good for any other, and I understand what you're saying, Maren, that if any applicant comes in, that they will have to just abide by what is currently there in terms of any sort of business. But I think we've all seen and experienced painfully at times that push of trying to put something where it really doesn't belong. So that's one of the reasons why I'm suggesting that we take another look at the map, and adjust it. That's it.
So can we at the next meeting, can you circulate the maps to us?
Yeah,
Okay, you have them right there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, they're on the website.
yeah.
I mean, as an example, on this map, it's really tiny, but you can see the green right at the juncture of 110 and 119, right? And we now know that it's not possible to have anything within 500 feet of the common because it is considered a park. And then on the other side, you know, the Westford line is a childcare center. So again, there can't be anything respectively within.
So I actually think that's two different things. So I think the park we can assume remains, right?
Yeah.
That's not going anywhere.
Right.
If the child care center closes tomorrow,
It goes away, yes.
right, and,
Right, but-
I think you're asking for an informational exhibit that shows what would be possible today. Yeah.
okay, gotcha.
Exactly.
Separate
So-
from the zoning map.
Right. And so from that, we could then make an
Right.
informed decision.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
Yep. Okay, so that's one thing I wanted to put on the table. Again, we won't resolve it tonight, but to be able to at least have the discussion would be really helpful.
Mary, I think that goes on your list.
Yes.
Next, on page 2, it's, again, a consistency thing under item B1. It currently says the registered marijuana overlay district. We might just want to rename the district so that we're not using the terminology of registered marijuana.
Right.
I'm sorry, so.
So on page 2 of the clean copy,
I don't have the clean copy.
oh, you don't?
I don't. If you can just give me the
Sure,
section number?
Sure, 197 B, under Medical Marijuana Treatment Center, it says the Registered Marijuana Overlay District.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
So if we can just call that the MTC Overlay District. So there isn't any confusion.
Gotcha.
And wouldn't, sorry, wouldn't we have to also delete the RMD district from the map? Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, good point, good point. Under 198A, it says the number of marijuana retailers within the town shall not exceed.
Sorry, I'm just taking notes.
Yes, okay. 173-198A,
Yeah,
it says the number of marijuana retailers with the town shall not exceed the minimum number required to be allowed within the town absent a ballot vote, and it states Massachusetts general law.
yeah,
Is there just a reason why we can't say 2, which is our,
because it could change. So I believe the calculation is 20% of the liquor licenses that we're allowed to give. And so as we go up in population, we get more liquor licenses, and so that number could go up.
okay, got it, thank you. So,
How did that come about?
That's state,
I know, but who picked 20%?
legislators?
So what happens if they change the state law on that is in front of them now on liquor licenses?
Well, we don't have to change
If they
our-
don't change this, they're, I think,
I mean, isn't it going to change that there's home rule on the number of liquor licenses that are allowed? That's what's in front of them now. They're-
yeah, so I guess the answer to that is I don't know. I don't know how likely that is to, you guys probably may have a better idea. I don't know how likely that is to pass, but if it passes, they're going to need to maybe put in the formula here, that they use, for currently divided by 5.
So that just might be something to keep an eye on.
Well, but your board would be the one that would set the number of liquor licenses.
Possibly.
Yes, if that would be true, but then we'd have to realize that we also then are affecting the number of marijuana licenses we're
Right.
allowing if we help them.
Yeah. But it could also be that what they do is make the change to the state law that says, so there's a calculation as to, if you have so many people, you get so many licenses, they might just put that in here so that they're tying it directly to our population. I don't know what they do, but you're right, we have to watch that.
Everything's tied together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one, 173, 198, B is in boy, it says the number of MTCs within the town shall not exceed 1. So just for clarity purposes, can we spell out what MTCs are as it relates to the cultivation component to it? Or cite the definition of 173-2, because it's just not clear. And up above where we talk about MTCs, it talks about medical marijuana treatment centers, and just the language itself, a treatment center, is very misleading. And
But
so,
we get that from the state. So
okay.
that's their terminology.
So I'm just trying to figure out a way that under B, could we make it clear that they are a cultivator? That's really ultimately my goal.
That one of the things that it includes.
Yes.
Yes, I want to think about that a little more, because
Okay.
I never want to have state law saying one thing and us saying
Right.
another. But let me think about that a little more and see what we can come up with.
I'm just trying-
I understand what you're getting
Yeah,
at.
I'm thinking ahead to town meeting and explaining,
Yeah.
medical marijuana treatment centers. It's not really a treatment center. Okay.
Hold 1 second while I write
Yep.
this down. Okay.
So then on 173-1995, I'm sorry, C as in cat 5,
Gotcha.
talks about the following factors in its design and operating plan. And I know that we're using the original bylaw language throughout all of this. That, no quibbles with that, but
Doesn't mean you can't change it.
I would like to add something about the odor control, because if we're talking about an applicant coming in and its design and operating plan, we want to make sure that they are aware that odor needs to be addressed as part of their design. So, as an example, there was some talk at some point that manufacturing of marijuana could produce odors from the kitchen. Well, if that's the case, if they have applied and they're now under this bylaw, they need to be compliant to make sure they're not creating excess odor, right? So that's what I want to be able to add in here, and given the fact that one of the purposes of this bylaw is to minimize the adverse impacts on the community, I think it really falls in line that we add something here.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent idea, and I think somewhere in Ivrea's letter, it talks about if odor is your concern, let's.
It has
put
been
that-
the concern.
Yeah, let's put that in the application process.
And I think that part of it is growing pains on the part of the cultivator. I mean, they're learning along
Right.
with us. And unfortunately, we've been guinea pigs to some degree. And we had one application for cultivation who just dropped out because he could see up ahead
Yeah.
how difficult it was going to be.
And then my last comment is under 173-203,
173 dash, hold on a second.
which is, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, sorry, 173-202, B
Okay.
is in boy,
Yep,
and then C.
B as in boy, you mean 3?
Well, hold on just a second, I'm trying to find it in the original one. Yeah, and the new one, it's 173-201.
Or 201.
C is in cat. I'm sorry, in the original one, it's 201, but in the new one, it's 202. So 173-202, C is in cat, and it's missing one, and I wanted to understand why, or if it was just an omission. In the old green sheet that was the original bylaw, there was a number 5 that said, "Special permits shall lapse upon the expiration or termination of an applicant's license from the Cannabis Control Commission." And I can pass this down so you can see.
Oh, I see,
it.
it's crossed out.
Yeah. Do we know why?
I don't, honestly.
It
We'll
could be
get an
asked
answer on that.
Ivrea, yeah.
Would you like it uncrossed out?
Yes.
Yeah, it sort of makes sense that it would not be crossed out.
So those are my items. Thank you for listening.
Mark, do you have any comments?
I have one question. If we're going to do 2 bylaws and we have to do an election, is there a reason to do them both in the same town meeting? If we're not going to do an election until May, a ballot vote until May, does it make sense to do the cleanup now and the other in May, when it will be a very small change and not likely to change on town meeting floor, because there would be nothing to change?
And just a reminder, election comes after town meeting.
Yes.
That does make sense. Then it's 4 days between as opposed to,
Otherwise, you're going to have to re-educate people that what you voted on in November, now there's a ballot in May, and it's...
The regular town meeting is more attended. So, yeah. Okay.
So
I think we should prepare it.
we'll be ready.
Let's just.
We'll be
prepare
ready.
it.
I get the logic. We'll be ready, and
Yeah,
that's a policy
but,
decision for you all
um,
tonight.
But pushing it forward, we can put off. I mean, we can explain at special town meeting that this is our plan.
You're not doing two,
2 bylaws.
Same time.
well, you're not doing 2 education processes.
Right. Well, yeah.
And did I hear correctly that we can't, you said we can't prohibit medical facilities, but we can limit it to 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is the existing one.
Yes.
So far.
Unless they go out, but then, so then,
Right.
right, then it's open.
Okay. In the absence of further comments, I'd like to thank you for coming. And we will schedule some time at the next meeting. What will we have to look at the next meeting? Will we have the bifurcated materials at that point? It's just 3 weeks. Well, we really
You
do
said-
need to
What do you
have.
mean by bifurcated?
Well, we did the 2 bylaws.
Well, it's one bylaw, and you're looking at 2 warrant articles or a bifurcated
Right.
warrant
I
article.
guess I'm saying the 2.
I think we can.
Okay, well, let's do it. Let's
Okay.
push it. We'll be getting other things coming in, and while we have this little lull, we should focus on this.
Okay.
So can we have some time for
We
August
should vote
1st?
to continue the public hearing, meeting of Thursday, August 1st. I haven't seen any new applications pending. You'll have that, so 7:00 PM.
Is that okay? 7? Okay. Can I have a motion?
Make a motion to continue the public hearing until our next meeting on August
August 1st.
1st,
7 PM. We'll be in this room again tomorrow.
3.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll see you in
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all.
Yes.
See you.
I think, am I wishful thinking, but have we concluded our meeting? So can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Yeah.